Welcome to this week's GuruFocus webinar. The title and topic of tonight's presentation is how to track insider buying. If those of you who don't know, when you hear insider buying or insider selling, don't think of it as the illegal insider trading component, but insiders are those people the SEC defines as either company executives or significant owners, meaning they own 5% or greater of the publicly traded stock. So those are categorized by the Securities and Exchange Commission as technically insiders. So those people, as you can imagine, have access to information that you and I and the general public do not have, right? They're going to, if you're the CEO of a company or the CFO, you own 10%, you sit on the board, you're going to know what the company's future plans are. You're going to have a pretty good idea of what earnings estimates are going to be. And that is inside information that you're not allowed to trade on. So because of that, these insiders must file with the SEC every time they buy or sell in their company's stock. And luckily for us, it's a public filing. We have access to that information, and GuruFocus aggregates that information along with the 13F filings of these hedge fund and mutual fund managers, and we can now identify, track, and kind of work with that data to make investment decisions. So this is where the information is going to be found on the GuruFocus website. You will see on that top banner there, one of those headings is Insiders. When you hover over that, you've got several options down below, and we're going to cover each of those in this webinar. So let's go to a live website here. This is the GuruFocus.com homepage, and once again, we'll hover over the Insiders tab, and you see you've got several options here. We'll start with the first, which is just all insiders. And what this is going to do is track any and all insider buying and selling information. So again, insiders, company executives, and 5% or greater public stock owner. Anyone who owns 5% or greater of a single share class of the stock is technically how it's defined. So we've got a lot of raw data here, and as you can see, there are 11,000 records. So it's not going to do us a whole lot of good. We obviously want to begin to filter this information, make it useful to us, and get this down to a small list of information and a short number of stocks that may be beneficial to us. So how do we do that? Well, there's several ways that we can filter this data. So from the main screen here, you've got a couple of options. You can search by symbol, right? If you're long a big position in Apple, for instance, enter in the ticker symbol, press go, and we're going to see all of the insider activity for Apple. It's going to do it in descending order by date. So you see the first one we got here is May 5th of this year, August 30, August 22nd, etc. on down the line. It'll show you not only who bought it, so you've got the person's name, their position with the company, also the number of shares, the price at which they made that trade, the total dollar amount, this is thousands for that transaction, and then the price the stock has changed since then. So is the stock up since they sold it or bought it? Is it down since then? And then you've got a couple of basic metrics here, yield, PE, and the market cap of the firm. So that's a way to look at it stock specific. Once again, you can click, just like you can any of the line items on the 10-year financials, you can click anywhere in between on one of these line items and get some analytics on this information. So it's going to show you the number of insider buys and sells, going to chart that over the last couple of years according to the stock price, and list out some of those insider trades as well. Now, if you're not looking for a particular stock and you're looking to instead generate some ideas from this and take tips from, hey, if the CEO and the CFO and these guys are all buying it, maybe it's a good opportunity, you can drill this down in different ways. So first, you can drill this down by market cap, right? If you're only looking for, let's say, micro cap stocks in the semiconductor industry, you can find that. Currently, there aren't. Well, we've got none shown on the micro cap. Let's look at small cap. We've still got. Let me refresh this. It's still searching Apple. So from here, we've got the full list, and then we can do this. We want to look down at micro cap stocks. We can do that. We've got 6,000 of them now, down from 11,000. If you're looking for something like a small cap energy company that's got heavy insider buying, you can filter that down further. You can even drill down to, if you want a drilling company, integrated, midstream, upstream, that kind of thing. You can filter it by the number of shares they purchase. So you don't really care if they bought 100 shares, but if they bought 100,000, you might be interested. You can filter it by stocks that are within a certain percentage, let's say 10% of their 52-week low or their 3-year low, and drill that down even further. So that's kind of one nice way if you're looking for exposure in a certain segment of the market, a certain industry, a certain company size, you can drill it down there. But I have to remind you, of course, that this is what I'm showing you is for U.S. stocks. GuruFocus has this ability for all the regions that we monitor, okay? So as you can see in these check boxes, if you're looking for Canadian stocks or British stocks, Asia, etc., you can check those boxes and it will perform all the same analysis, all the same. It'll pull all the same data for stocks from that region. Now from here you've got a couple of options, right? You can go back up here to the insiders hovering and hover over here. You've also got all these in the horizontal panel that's right here across the top of the screen. I don't know why this is not staying, but you've got them all right here. So you don't have to keep using the drop-down menu. You can kind of reference everything right from whatever page you happen to be on. So it's got a couple of headings here, like if you're looking for just Canadian insiders, just Dutch insiders, you can go that route. Again, if you're looking for a different region, you can just do it from the summary page. For instance, check UK, Ireland, and you'll get more listings there. Now, if you want to be more specific with this, you can actually dictate the buys and sells based on the person's position. You get CEO buys, CFO buys, and double, triple clusters, etc. But one thing I want to show you really quickly, there's a couple of articles referenced here, and if you're not sure about is the insider information, is it really that relevant? Is it really something I want to take a look at? We've done some research on it, okay? And here this first article is, can aggregated insider trading activities predict the market? Well, if we click on that, it'll take us to a little article that shows the history here. And this is something created by Charlie Tian, the owner and creator of GuruFocus. It's going to show you that over time, CEOs and CFOs have tended to buy heavier at the right times and sell at the right times. But what there also is a real-time interactive, let me see if I can find it here. Insider Trends is what it's called. So under Insiders and Insider Trends, there's an interactive graph that shows you where we lie in the history of insider buying and selling, not only for the whole market, but for individual industries. Let's take a look at that really quickly. When we do this, you're going to get a lot of graphs. If these load slow, I apologize. It's taking a lot of data to stream this webinar, but what you're seeing is by month, the buy-sell ratio of the overall market. All right, so what this is the line in blue is obviously the price, right? Just like a stock chart. The green vertical histogram here is the buy-sell ratio. And you see the numbers here, 6, 4, 2, 0. Right now we're at 0.7. Anything above 1 means there's more buying than selling. Anything below 1 means there's more selling than buying. And we're quickly seeing here, look at the best time you could have ever bought this market in the last 50 years. Look at how high this buy-sell ratio was, okay? Now, if we got statistics from, let's say, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, Schwab, and others, and looked at the individual investor buy-sell ratio, I bet it would be the opposite if I had to guess. I would bet that people are buying, 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 buying. Oh, now I want to sell everything. Now I want to buy, 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 buy. Because the individual investor just historically has a poor history of timing the market. People trade emotionally. They buy in exuberance when markets are high and valuations are rich, and they sell when valuations are extremely low, but there's fear and panic in the market. But these company insiders, I mean, they're intelligent investors, and this just shows really clearly. And you see with the dip we had here in the late 11, they bought really heavy then. It shows pretty clearly that they are pretty good at timing a market. And if you scroll down, what Charlie's done is create buy-sell ratios for each sector based off of the ETF. Okay, so for financial services, for instance, you see when those buying and selling spiked. The right side is just the CEO. The left side is all insiders. And as we go through these various sectors, it's pretty clear they timed this market fairly well for the most part. When we look at real estate, they saw this little dip as a little dip and had no idea that '08 was coming. But hey, this thing bottomed out and they were buying like crazy once again. Happened again when it pulled back here in 11. And roughly the same thing on the CEO side. If we look at energy, for instance, energy is a great one to look at right now because we've seen energy prices crumble over the last 12 months. I mean, we were used to $100 to $120 crude. Then all of a sudden we were dealing with, $45 crude oil. Well, look at the insider buying here. Okay, the ratio was right around here, around 0.81, something like that. Then it spikes all the way to 5. So 5 times the buy orders versus the sell orders right here when things started getting cheap. And the CEO side shows you the same thing. It is dip in energy, and the level of buying versus selling just skyrocketed. They're showing that they recognize, a basic value play, right? It's a opportunity to buy it cheaper than average prices. And we got the same thing on utilities. Healthcare is shown here, the industrial sector, communication services. The list really goes on and on, but any area you're interested in or own stocks, any sector you own stocks in, I would encourage you to take a look at this and kind of get an idea for it. Not just to go back and say, oh, wow, I wish I'd have seen this back in '08 when I knew the buying was, but no, to get a kind of idea for where insider buying is going right now, right? I mean, kind of load out here in 2014. If I'm looking at basic materials, we've been kind of in an uptrend right here in insider buying. Same for CEO buying. So kind of try to, in your head, run like a baseline for where the level average is, and judge: are we seeing more buying, a trend of higher buy ratios, or a trend of higher sell ratios? When we look at the technology sector, it's very much the opposite, right? I think we'd all agree that tech sector has gotten a little bit rich. It's been extremely hot the last 5 years or so, but look at the technology side now. Had big buying back here along with everything else. But now that ratio of last month is 0.2. So for every buy order that an insider is placing, there are 5 sell orders. All right, so they're beginning to see this as a little bit overvalued, and the CEO is doing the same thing. So again, it's not going to tell you what the sector is going to do tomorrow or next week, but it is a pretty good idea does give you a pretty good idea for the long-term outlook, what these individuals are seeing as opportunities. Now I got to ask, can we see that for any stock or ETF? Yeah, absolutely. If you go back to the summary and put in any stock you want, like for instance, look at General Electric, and just click one of these line items here, we'll quickly see what this looks like. Now, as you can see, there's not a ton of data, right? I mean, you're not going to have as much data for a single stock as you are an ETF that comprises the entire industry. Just because when you look at insiders, there's really not that many, right? There may be, 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, but they're not day trading their stocks. So, you'll see in green is the number of insider buys, in red is the number of insider sells, but you will see if there's times when you're getting a lot of insider buying. And just on a hunch, what I'd like to do is take a look at Apple and just see if we saw some big spikes back when that price got down around $400 a share. And we may or may not see that. I'm just kind of curious here. No, we're not really seeing it. Seeing mostly the sells on Apple for the last several years. There were a little bit of buying here in late 2012. Now, some of these stocks you got to remember. I mean, if the employees or the insiders are getting a lot of this as part of their compensation package, that doesn't mean they're just dumping all the stock and they refuse to buy it. But if they're getting half their compensation or 2/3 their compensation in stock of that company, well, they're probably holding multi-million-dollar portfolio of just Apple stock, but all you're seeing is the sales. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. Insider buying is usually a really good indication. If you see heavy insider buying, it's usually a really good indication that they see this as an opportune time to buy. Insider selling, on the other hand, don't take it too much to heart unless it's just a crazy high spike, because it could be the CEO is sending his kid to college and had had to liquidate some stock. You could be buying a new mansion and sold $3 million worth of stock over the last 12 months to fund that project. You're seeing a lot of selling in there. So don't necessarily take that as a bad symbol for the stock. And as far as in real time, yes, it's as real time as you can get. I mean, as soon as this information is public with the SEC, within 20 minutes, it is on the GuruFocus website. I believe they have the same rule. I think they have 14 days from the time of their purchase or sell to file that with the SEC. So, within, again, as soon as it's public information, maximum 14 days, it is up on this site. Now, as I mentioned, you can also look, by the certain employees. So you may want to, you may value CEO or CFO buys a little bit higher. Personally, I would, right? I mean, the CEO and CFO have vast, intimate knowledge of this company. Their activities are going to carry more weight for me than, maybe a family trust that owns 10% or a large fund that has a big position in this. So you can look just by CEO and CFO. And once again, you can filter this by the past 7 days, 14 months, a month, 2 months, etc. And you can drill this down by market cap to find stocks kind of in the area you want. Now, on the other side of things, again, we mentioned that insider selling is not necessarily a terrible sign unless it's just massive selling by multiple people. But in any time you're on one of these pages, there's usually a link at the top to what the CEOs are selling. So this is all showing buys down here, but we can quickly click the red link there and take me to the insider sells. And if you're on the sales page, vice versa, this hyperlink is green, showing you the buys. Now, the CFO link works pretty much the same. It's just searching by, the CFO versus the CEO, the Chief Financial Officer versus the Chief Executive Officer. Now, a couple of things over here to the right you've got, which kind of compound our research, make it a little more powerful. You got cluster buys, double buys, and triple buys. All right, so what does that mean? Well, a double buy means there are gurus buying it, and there's also insiders buying it. Okay, so you see in the chart here for the S&P, of the double buy-sell ratio. It's just as strong as the other was. Now, when you're looking for, I want a guru that's buying it and also insiders, remember, by default, because we have this personalized guru list you set up on GuruFocus, it's very easy if you haven't done it. By default, the gurus it's searching for are the my gurus, right? The ones that you've put in your list that you want to track, that you have a lot of respect for and want to know when they make trades. You can click on the full premium list, or if you're a premium plus member, you can click that and see everyone that files a 13F, anyone who manages $100 million or more, and look at all of those. So you do have a couple of options. If you're not sure, I'll just go to the premium list. That's kind of the top value-focused money managers that this site has been built on and following for the last decade or so. And you'll get a pretty thorough list here. Now, once again, you've got a long list of stocks. You don't want to do the research in each and every one of these maybe, so you can filter this down. We can look for, let's say we want 10,000 shares or more, and we've still got a pretty decent list. We can find, if we only want to find, let's say, large cap stocks, we can do that, and we've got to trim this list down just a little bit more. Maybe we want some that are within 10% of their year low. We'll see if there's anything left. Still got a pretty long list. Let's make this bigger. There we go. So if we filter down to 100,000 shares, we've got a much shorter list. Okay, so again, it's one of those things you're going to kind of want to play with and try different levels of filters and things you want to look for. But again, like a lot of other features on this site, it's just a great way to get ideas in front of you and get new ticker symbols to dig into. A lot of these you haven't heard of. I haven't heard of half the symbols we're looking at right here, but any one of them you can directly click, take you to the site page. This is Eagle Bulk Shipping. Okay, small company, 375 million. Maybe we'll dig through their financials. Maybe we'll see it looks like a good opportunity. Maybe it doesn't, but we've got that option to get in there. Now, this is the double buys. Triple buys are the same, but it adds company buying. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it's stock buybacks, right? And buybacks are one component of the market. We love to see buybacks. I like to look for stocks that I call kind of cannibal stocks that are aggressively buying back their shares. And hopefully you guys as intelligent investors understand the power of stock buybacks, right? If a company's got, let's just make it simple, let's say they've got 100 shares outstanding, I own one of them, I own 1% of the company. If over the next several years they buy back 50 of the shares, well, now there's only 50 shares outstanding. I still only own one, but my one share is now worth 2% of the company instead of 1%. So earnings per share double. Dividends will probably double, right? I mean, all the metrics will drastically improve because there's fewer shares out there, and on a per share basis, I've got a lot more earnings. I've got a lot more book value, and so it compounds as returns for the individual investor. So this looks for stocks that gurus are buying, insiders are buying, and the companies are buying through buybacks. So this is going to be a fairly short list. We've got 36 stocks here by default because we got a lot of parameters on this thing, right? We're looking for a lot. We want everyone buying this stock. So from then you can filter this down even further. If we want to look at just mega caps, for instance, to see if anything makes our list. Okay, still got some stocks here. Let's look and see what's in the mid-cap area. And when you're looking at gurus buying them, generally you're going to find less of the small and mid-cap stocks, right? Because these guys are managing billions of dollars. They don't buy near as many small, micro, and mid-cap stocks that do large and mega-cap stocks. Now, Lori asked, when you type in a symbol such as Apple, why does the chart still show SPY? And I apologize, this is holding up. Again, I've just got some a little bit of lag here as we're broadcasting this. But let's go back to Lori's question. She asked about if you put in a single stock, why does it still show the chart of SPY? Well, Lori, the chart on the top is still going to be the SPY, just a summary of where the market runs. So no matter which stock you're looking at, you can still get kind of an overview of the market. The actual chart of the stock is going to be shown below by clicking on one of the line items, right? Because there's just not near as much data for a single stock, even a big one like Apple, as there is for the SPY index. But by clicking here, that's where we see the number of insider buys and sells on a monthly basis for that specific stock. Now, Jim asked, are the buyback shares actually shares bought, or are they shares the company intends to buy back? No, those are stocks that are actually bought. Yeah, we don't calculate into this planned buybacks. If a company announces, say, hey, we're going to implement a $5 billion buyback program for the next 2 years, none of that's in here. This is shares that have actually been purchased on the open market by the company and either retired or put into on their balance sheets as treasury stock. Now, for those of you that are kind of advanced in Excel or want to do some of your own analytics, we also have a very extensive data export program here. Now, a lot of you, especially if you're an individual investor, maybe managing your own, IRA account or 401k, personal investment account, you may not get this detailed into it, but for a lot of you out there, I know are institutional money managers, you're managing large sums, and you may even have a research department at your firm there that handles a lot of this research. So you can actually search by country, by who's doing the buying, the time period, the market cap, and an industry, and search by buys and sells, buys only or sells only, or both, and actually download all that data. Now, I'm not going to do it right now because, as you can imagine, there's a lot of data. It's going to take some time, and I don't want you all to sit through that on a webinar, but it will export all of that data should you decide to aggregate it on your own or put it into some kind of file, or maybe work your Excel magic and kind of manipulate that data to graph it any way you see fit. So, again, if you are advanced in Excel or other programs like that, you can export this data. Now, the final tab is the trend tab. We covered this. I thought it was only in the drop down, but it is right over here far to the right side of this horizontal bar across the top, and it does show each of these sectors on a monthly basis, buy to sell ratio, which we covered earlier. Now, you asked, do I mind to clarify the cluster buys versus double buys? Yeah, no problem. Cluster buys are going to be the same essentially is triple buys. A double buy is double is two, right? So double is going to be gurus, in other words, professional money managers that we're following, and insiders. That's company executives or substantial 5% owners. Triple buys and cluster buys is the same thing, but it also includes company buybacks, right? So you've got the gurus, the money managers buying the stock. You've got insiders that work there buying it in their personal accounts. And then you've got the company buying back shares in the company account because they find it to be a good use of capital, right? I mean, if your company is trading at 50 times earnings and you think that's overvalued, it may not be the best use of capital to buy a bunch of stock up at $100 a share. Think it's going to be $50 a share later. But if your stock is trading at a price less than you think it's worth, and you've got several $100 million sitting in a balance sheet with nothing to do and no expansion plans, it may make sense for you to buy back the company's shares because that's a way for you to create shareholder value, right? If you can't increase the earnings, you can't pay it out, you don't want to pay it out in dividends, you can't use it to expand, you can buy back the stock and equally create shareholder value in that way. Now, the insider cluster buys here, as I mentioned, cluster buys and triple buys are the same thing. Okay, it's a cluster, it's three. On the insider cluster buys tab, though, you can just kind of fine-tune your search criteria a little bit. Okay, so you can choose the number of gurus, at least one guru or at least 10 gurus. You can decide how many, people buying that stock you need to see to get interested. You can do the same thing with the insiders. Is it enough for you if maybe one VP in their satellite office is buying, or do you need to see 5, 6, 7 people in that company picking up shares in their own account? And you can also search by how much of the stock is this company buying back. Now, this data here, which you'll see over to the right, the company buyback rate is the annual average over the last 3 years. Okay, so if you just heard a company just bought back 5% of their stock last year and it's not showing up, that's because we're averaging that rate over 3 years. Okay, so look, if they're buying back 2% of their shares on average, on a 3-year average, that's pretty good. I mean, it means over 10 years they're going to buy back 20, 25% of that stock and create some real value for you. So you can decide, how tight you want those parameters there. Now, again, these are triple buys. Okay, so these have gurus buying them. These have the individuals that work there buying them in their own accounts. And they have the company buying them. So the list is not going to be as long as some of the others you filter. So don't make these parameters too tight. For instance, if we go all the way up to 5 gurus and do a search, we're already down to just 2 stocks, JP Morgan and Intertech Group. Now if we do instead, just 3 gurus, well, still only got 1 more out of it. So just want you guys to realize, if you filter this list down too hard, you can quickly kind of run out of options with it because this is kind of a lot to ask of these companies. Yeah, we got nothing there. So if I ask, do you have a way of knowing if gurus are adding to their position over time? Well, what we can do, you can look at the history of this person's buying. You can quickly scroll through, especially if you're doing stock specific, right? So we'll use Apple again just because there's not a lot of buying in Apple. Give me something people have been buying up. Let's look at BP. It's an energy company. Probably have some insider buys there. Okay, or not. Let's try another one. Let's look at ExxonMobil. Okay, so here we got some records, 135 records, right? So if you really want to dig into this deeply and say, all right, who is this Dennis Waskov guy? He's a vice president. Is he adding? What's he doing? You can go through and see every time he's bought and sold in here, right? It shows it by date. Got sell, 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 sell. Lots of sells come out of these guys as of recently. Some buys prior. You can filter this down by just the activity. So if you want to see just the buys on top and the sells on the bottom, or vice versa, you can do that. But there's not a way really that we can aggregate and graph just one particular person's buying or selling, if that's what you're asking, Fi. But again, we don't have access to their accounts, only the activity pertaining to their company's stock. So again, just keep it in mind, most of these large companies, part of their compensation is, these stock options or stock offerings that they get access to, right? I mean, if you go find the CEO of some Fortune 500 company, it may say he's got a salary of, $300,000 a year, and then he takes home $5 million a year because there's incentives and there's a lot of stock as part of that package. So just know that they're given a lot of stock in their own company already. So for them to go out and buy more is a pretty substantial piece of information, in my opinion, right? I mean, these guys already have extremely concentrated positions in their own stock. So if they're out there buying more, it's usually a pretty strong feeling. Carol asks, how do you account for the gurus that don't report their purchases for 4 to 6 months? Well, Carol, here's how the reporting works. So if you're talking about gurus, not insiders, they have to report their holdings once a quarter, okay, in what's called a 13F filing. And that filing, they have 45 days from the conclusion of the quarter to file that. So the last one came out, the first quarter ended March 31st, so the deadline for them to file was 15 days later, which was April the 15th. So some of the bigger names, if you're looking at Icon and some of these, CNBC favorites, they're going to wait to the last minute and file. But they can't wait anywhere after that, or they're going to be penalized. So you will see, you'll see them file again on, July 15th, which is going to be 15 days after the end of the second quarter. So she asked, I heard that some people like Buffett get special privilege not to report on time. I don't think there's a lot of that. No, Carol. Once in a while there could be some, special circumstances, if they're doing some type of large acquisition or something that require them to hold off on part of their holdings. But for the most part, no. They're all filing on time. All that information is aggregated, and it's brought to you on GuruFocus.com real time within 20 minutes. That becoming public information. So what questions do you have? We've covered kind of the basics of how to look through this inside information. Again, it's not everything. It's not the end-all, be-all. It doesn't give us valuation, but it is a nice piece of the puzzle, I think, right? And one of the big things we struggle with is how do I get fresh ideas? How do I get more stocks to look at without starting in the A's, as Warren Buffett tells us to do? And I think this is a nice way to look at it. Now, if you're on just a particular stock page, I'm going to keep using Apple here, and let's say you're digging through the 10-year financials or whatever this was, you can always go over to the Insider tab on here, right? Each one of these stocks, everything is really well referenced. You can go to the Insider window right here and immediately see those trades, just like you can the Guru trades, just like you can jump to the interactive chart. And you can do this without having to start all over. So if you're digging into a stock, you may say, let me check out the Insider activity. And here's what it's going to show you. So, one, it's going to show you who are these insiders, right? Who owns how much of this stock? As you can see, the top holder, Mr. Stephen Jobs, God bless his soul, owned 59.7% of the insider shares, right? Of shares owned by insiders. And it goes down the list, giving you the name of the position. We've got Tim Cook here. You see he owns right around 1 million shares. And at, $130 a share or so. That's a pretty substantial portfolio. The guy's been in office, been in the position since 2010, 2012, something like that. He's already got a $100 million portfolio just of Apple. Okay, so, if he's got that and you see Tim Cook buying more shares, you see what I'm saying here? It's more substantial. It's going to show you a couple of other things as well. So someone asked earlier, I didn't want to skip over your question, you asked about institutional ownership, and I wanted to wait till we got here to show you that. This graphs the institutional ownership percentage of the stock. Okay, so what this is showing you is what percentage of the company's outstanding shares are owned by institutions. So that's mutual funds, hedge funds, any kind of institutionally managed money. And you'll quickly see, where they lie in the history of the percentages they've owned. Now, in my opinion, they didn't do very good at timing Apple. Right? I mean, it got to an all-time low here, mid 2013, when that stock was a fantastic buy. And down below, you're going to see that information we looked at earlier. The same thing you would do when clicking on one of these line items. You're going to see the number of insider buys, the number of insider sells by month for the last, in this case, 3 years or so. Okay, so Yin asked, he said, just to be clear, I've got a couple questions here. Hold on. Just to be clear, gurus have up to 3 months before they can report their activity. What's the max number of days they can push it before reporting? No, Yin, they have 15 days after the end of the quarter. Excuse me, 45 days. So a month and a half after the end of the quarter to report their full holdings as of the end of that quarter. It's going to show all activity that occurred in those prior 3 months. So just remember, like say April 15th, tax day, and then every 3 months the reports come out. Okay, so Adam asked, 13F filings due 45 days at the end of the quarter. Some big money files earlier, others at last minute. Very true. His question is, with GuruFocus Premium, do I assume correctly that a user would see insider buys and sells no sooner than a general financial site, or does GuruFocus offer an earlier look? So GuruFocus offers as early in a look as you can gain access to. I mean, as soon as that information is public knowledge, it is immediately aggregated into this website. So nowhere else can you get that information sooner. Daniel mentioned 20 minutes after it's been reported, it's on GuruFocus. Yeah, that's correct. I mean, 20 minutes maximum, right? Just for the data to aggregate and get into our system and update and refresh the page. I mean, it's essentially automatic. You're not going to get it faster anywhere else. I mean, 20 minutes, like, just kind of a personal disclaimer in case they file it at 2:02 p.m. You don't see it on the site till 2:08 p.m. Off topic, but if a premium member screens like insider buys defaults to my gurus, and a lot of the time it takes me a while to realize that I need to click the premium button, and I wonder why I'm looking at a small data set. Is there any way to make premium a default? Johnny, good question, and there is. Here's how you do that. Now, Johnny's question is this. If he's going to a screener, and let's just look at the all-one screener, for instance. Actually, we don't need to do that. Let's just do this. Let's say he's looking at all insiders. And by default, it's going to go to his personal list. Right? And he's saying, well, I want it to default to all of them. I don't want to get caught up in this thing for 10 minutes and realize, dang it, I forgot to click the button. So how do you do that? Man, I must have slow internet over here. Basically, the way to do that, Johnny Costa, to answer your question is, go to set up your list of your personal list of gurus, and just check all, like you've got to. There's a list on the left side of all the premium ones. Just select all, and then hit the right arrow to add them to your default list, and make that your default list. Okay, and then you can have different ones. So you can have another personalized set of gurus you follow that is, hedge fund managers, or your top 10 or your top 20. But the default one will be all the premiums. Fi asks, how would you deal with insiders buying in other countries, i.e. UK, China, etc.? What metrics do you use? So Fi, I mean, all that information you're going to get is exactly the same as it is for the domestic stocks, right? So if you're in the UK or you're in China or you're interested in Chinese stocks, the insider activity is going to show is exactly the same. May 5th, Fletcher, I'm sorry, I said April 15th earlier. I meant May 15th. Thank you for correcting me there. Yeah, May 15th and 30 days after. Entire system song. I don't know what's happening. I apologize. Kind of bad timing with the webinar going on. It looks like Charlie may have had some maintenance scheduled on the website to just, because generally, 5 o'clock p.m. to 6 or 7 is the lowest activity time we see on the site when people are finishing work and they're not home doing research. So it may be doing some very brief website maintenance, so I apologize for that. Website backup. Oh, major server upgrade. That's what's going on. There we go. Now we're back. But yeah, Johnny, to answer your question earlier, that's how you do that. Just go to your personal list of gurus and do the quick organize here. This by default is going to show you the premium ones up top. So it's all the way down here to Fair Home Focused Income Fund. Just select all of those and hit this right arrow, and boom, they're in your guru list by default. And as you can see, you can have different lists here. So you'd finish that up, and then you can make another group. So you can click this new group button right here. You can create a new group that is, just your 10 or 20 you want to follow. But that way you won't be fumbling around with it. So by default, your My Guru's default list is all the premium ones. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So Daniel asked, sorry if this was already covered, but you expand on the timing of the information and it's reflecting on market price. Yeah, Daniel, the timing of the information, so any insider buy is going to be, it must be reported and therefore become public knowledge and on our website within 14 days. So the timing, what I was touching on is just that insiders tend to time the market far better than the average investor, right? If you're the CEO, you're working at the company, let's say you're the CEO of ExxonMobil. Not only do you know the markets because you've been around it for decades, you know the energy business front and back, you know ExxonMobil's business like no one else on the planet. So who is more qualified to say this is a great time to buy Exxon stock or this is not a great time to buy Exxon stock? So when we look at that CEO activity, which is shown here in the insider trend section, they are just acutely talented at timing those buys. And we'll look at financial services, for instance, because those guys are right in the market, right? The buy to sell ratio went up to 15 here in 2009. So there's 15 CEOs buying their own stock for every one that was selling. And even this little dip here in late 11 going into 12, huge buying ratio of 12 buys to every one sell. So this chart isn't extremely detailed. If you went back and looked at this, it might be more something like this. But you'll usually see every little pullback, as long as things aren't overvalued, they're picking up shares. So it's extremely strong tool. Again, big picture, not what's going to happen this week or next month, but big picture. You're looking, hey, I'd like to add some real estate stocks to my account that I can hold. Looking for some REITs I can hold for a few decades or whatever. Watch the insider activity. Wait till they're getting pretty strong and pretty high, like we are right now. And probably not a bad time to get into that sector. Any other questions referring to insider selling? The features here on the GuruFocus website that allow you to track and analyze that information, or just general questions regarding the website that we can answer before we conclude the webinar. And for anyone who is not a GuruFocus member, I encourage you to take the trial. It is extremely low risk. It's a free 30-day trial. It will continue. If you don't cancel within 30 days, it's going to continue. But you can cancel that at any time. You can send an email. You can call the office. There's literally a handful of people in the office. They're extremely friendly. You can call and talk to Charlie, the owner of the company. Tell me you want to cancel it. If it's past your 30 days, they'll prorate it back. Well worth it, in my opinion, and anyone who's going to be an active investor for the membership. But look, we know it's not for everybody. If it turns out not for you, cancel it. No hard feelings. Continue to use the site as a free member. So Matt asks, is there a way to work backwards from this data? So you're looking at like a top-down approach. So he's asking, for instance, let's say CEO buys and utilities are high. Can we find out which companies this pertains to? Yeah, you can, Matt. So here's how you do that. It takes a couple extra steps, but let's take your example. The CEO buys and utilities are high, right? So we can then go back to the summary page here, and we are looking for utilities, or let's see, utility stocks. And this is going to show us which stocks have been getting the buys. Now, another thing you can do is filter this by, what I like to filter it by is the cost right up here in the top. So the cost is showing the total dollar value of the purchase, right? So whether they bought 10 shares of a company that's $1,000 a share or 100 shares of a $2 stock, it's going to put it in real dollar terms, right? So when you filter by that, you start to see that the purchases that have the most significance. So this is a $4 million purchase by a director of this company. This is a $1.3 million purchase of Dominion Resources. And you'll see these here. You can pretty quickly see if there's a certain stock that continues to pop up, right? So, and the utility industry has a lot of them here, but especially if you just go by date, you can quickly see the stocks that continue to pop up. Spark Energy, another Spark Energy down there at the bottom. So that's kind of how you would do that. You can filter it down by market cap, etc. You can look for maybe just large purchases, maybe 10,000 shares, but that's how you do that. Five, is it better to buy an ETF sector with insider buying and selling rather than individual stocks? Well, look, I won't say that. I won't say, ETFs, buying an ETF in a sector that's getting high buying, it's always going to outperform a stock, right? I mean, if you bought Apple a year ago, you'd have doubled your money. If you'd have bought Delta Airlines a year and a half ago with Tepper, you'd be up 100% or so. Amazon's had a phenomenal run as of late. So I can't say that conclusively. If you're new to investing and you don't feel as comfortable picking individual stocks, then yes, I think that's a good way to go, right? If you go down to a quote unquote financial advisor who's going to put you in some sort of an asset allocation model, they're going to be using either ETFs or more than likely mutual funds for certain sectors that charge higher fees. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, okay, I've got, let's say a $50,000 account here. I'm not yet comfortable picking stocks, so I want to split this up into some sectors, right? And ETFs are a great way to do that. So you could come over here to the trend section and say, okay, what is looking good? Where are the valuations? What's people buying? And you'd quickly find, hey, energy's had a lot of insider buying here recently, so let me put 10% of my account into XLE, this energy ETF. You may say, well, I want some of the broad markets. I'm going to put 25% in the SPY, et cetera, and work that way down. Yeah, definitely not a bad way to go. Matt, if I ask, is the trial premium plus? The trial is premium, I believe. Email Charlie at support at GuruFocus.com. To see if you can get a trial of Premium Plus. What you're seeing, everything we've done today is just with the premium features. Okay, Premium Plus, the difference is for you guys that are really data intensive and want to get the whole market. Premium Plus tracks every single institutional fund that manages $100 million or more, and there are tons of them. Okay, if you want to look at how many there are, here are the premium gurus. Okay, good number. I mean, there's several hundred of them here. These are all people that have been personally vetted, proven track records. People that we're comfortable putting in front of our audience, our members here, as proven investors whose decisions mean something. Now, when you go to Premium Plus, here's how many there are. Pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of these, and we're still just in the A's. All right, that's just the A's. So this is everyone who manages money. So these have not been all personally vetted, right? Just because they've got hedge fund on the front door, there's some kind of management company, does not mean there's someone you should follow. But if you want to get a picture of the whole market, this is going to allow you to do that. In addition, there's an API that you get as part of a Premium Plus member, which will allow you to use that API plugin in your personal website. Again, if you've got a research team or you've got a lot of tech experience, you can actually use the API to pull data from the GuruFocus site and manipulate that should you so choose. And finally, there's massive data export features as well. The power, you can pull a lot of this information out through Excel, and if you're a Power Excel user, Premium Plus can do a lot of things for you. Sean, what happens when you click on one? It's just going to show you, just like it would any other guru, right? It's going to show you their full portfolio, their recent stock picks, their latest, what their profile performance has been. where they lie in sector weightings. I'll give you a little bit of background on them, any articles that mention that person, and just a full rundown of their portfolio. So everything you're getting with one of the premium gurus we follow, you're just getting literally everyone who manages a significant amount of money. Sean, will it show? Yeah, it does. We do show option purchases, but when I say that, I think it only shows purchased options, and it doesn't show the strike and expiration because they don't have to disclose that. But like if we look at David Tepper's current portfolio, you see two of his three largest positions. The options are highlighted there in yellow. He's got calls on the SPY. He's got calls on the Qs. In this last quarter, he bought some calls on General Motors as well. So, again, it doesn't tell the strike and expiration. They don't have to disclose that information. There's really no way of knowing. In addition, generally, these guys, think about it, right? They're managing this. This guy's got billions, okay? He's not going to Thinkorswim and putting buy order, 100 calls, Feb 16, 140 strike, buy at market, right? They've got teams of traders on the floor, and they're saying, okay, I need, 30,000 call options for Apple expiring, second quarter of 16. Get them between 130 and 150 strike, and don't pay more than XYZ. That's more what's happening. So the odds of this full position is one strike, one expiration is very limited. You can dig through an option chain. For instance, if you've got a TD Ameritrade platform or something, you go to an option chain. Okay, so you say, look, we know he owns a lot of call options on General Motors. You can look at the open interest of those strikes and calls and probably get a pretty good idea of which one he's got. You can't hide, a purchase of 30,000 call options on GM extremely well. Also, these guys aren't day trading. They're buying for the next minimum 6 months, probably a year to 2 years. So, if he bought this in the first quarter, I'm looking at General Motors options that expire minimum end of 2015 through the end of 2016. You can quickly look at an option chain, say, where's the big open interest? A couple of them will pop out, and you'll see 20,000, 30,000, etc. Those are generally the ones he bought, right? It's not going to give you an exact answer, but it'll give you a pretty good idea of what options have been purchased. So it's a little bit off topic, but I wanted to answer all of your questions. Hopefully we've covered everything regarding insider buying here and some of the features we've got on the GuruFocus website to allow you to not only find that information, but see it in a relevant way that can help you make buy to sell decisions. If you've got any other questions, anything we didn't cover you want touched on, please feel free to email us, support@gurufocus.com, or give us a call at the office between 9 and 5. We definitely appreciate all of you joining us for this webinar, and we will be doing another one next Tuesday evening, so watch your email for that. This one was recorded. You'll get a link to the recording within 24 hours and a follow-up email, so watch for that. It'll also be on YouTube under the GuruFocus channel. Thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and trade well.